When Shen Lin was about to leave the country, pursuing her moonlight, I reached out, begging her not to go, but she didn't even look back. A year later, I got married. Unexpectedly, Shen Lin appeared at my wedding, seeing the wedding ring on my finger. The ever-proud eldest daughter of the Shen family broke down. She forced a smile. "Luo Ning, are you taking it off or should I do it for you?" Her voice trembled. "If you want a ring, I'll buy one for you. Throw this one away. I'm begging you." I smiled. "So desperate, aren't you? Is it because your moonlight has slipped away again?" Back then, Shen Lin's beloved white moonlight left for America in anger. She booked a plane ticket right in front of me, determined to chase after him. At the time, I was suffering from pneumonia. Wrapped in blankets yet still feeling cold. Shivering, I sat before her, watching her slender fingers tap confidently on her phone, booking a flight for that very night. I bit my lip, still wanting to make her stay. "Shen Lin, can you not go?" She gazed at me with her bright, haunting eyes and smiled oh so casually. "Just stay here like a good girl. I'll bring you back a gift." She lifted my chin, gave my lips a soft peck, tucked my blanket snugly around me. "What do you want, a watch or new sneakers?" I said nothing. Shen Lin loved giving people gifts. She had given me so many, but never a single ring. For Liansheng, though, she gave few gifts, yet each was a ring. Taking a deep breath, I looked at her delicate face, her cold, pale skin, and I still wanted to hold her back. "Can't you really stay?" I asked, almost pleading. The smile on Shen Lin's lips faded slightly, and she patted my head gently. "You know what our relationship is," she said. I stood there, speechless. I was the one who had chased after Shen Lin, and she had only one condition. Our relationship had to stay secret, especially from Liansheng. In truth, I was just a backup. I had no right to stop her, even though we were living together. And she had even taken me to a family gathering. Seeing that I had nothing more to say, Shen Lin smiled and kissed my forehead. "Be good," she said. "I'll bring you back a gift." I lowered my head. "When will you be back?" She stood up and slowly put on her dress. "A few days, maybe." Back then, she probably hadn't anticipated that her beloved moonlight wasn't just taking a break overseas. He was studying abroad. So she ended up staying with him for a year. I watched Shen Lin's graceful silhouette as she left, and sighed. Sensing my discontent, Shen Lin turned back. "Think about anything you want me to do before I leave," she said. "I'll do my best to fulfill it." I looked at her face, thought for a moment. "Can you help me find someone?" "Her name is Chezu," I said. "She's a war correspondent." Shen Lin's face darkened. "What's your relationship with her?" "If it's unclear, I won't help," she replied bluntly. I pressed my lips together. "She's my cousin," I said. "My aunt's daughter." Shen Lin's expression softened, and she nodded. "Wait for my message," she said, then turned and left. I watched her figure disappear. I took out a photo from my wallet. In the photo was a slender woman, bearing a striking resemblance to Shen Lin. I gently caressed the photo. Shen Lin truly was a forgetful person. I had told her once that I grew up in an orphanage. Where would an aunt come from? I even mentioned there was a younger girl in the orphanage who relied on me. We grew up together. But she heard it once and forgot it. She never even questioned why I liked looking at her face so much. Perhaps I only loved her face. Shen Lin truly loved Liansheng, even though Liansheng's attitude was unpredictable over the years, refusing to commit. Yet she loved him wholeheartedly. And I truly loved Shen Lin's face, a face so similar to Chezu's. I was always grateful to Shen Lin. She saved me from despair. When I met her, I had already lost contact with Chezu for 3 years. Many people said that Chezu was gone. I was like the walking dead, drained of all vitality, until I saw Shen Lin. She was my junior by a year. When I saw her face that resembled Chezu's so much, I cried. I went to great lengths to get close to Shen Lin, devoting myself unconditionally to her. Everyone knew I was Shen Lin's shadow, the one responsible for holding her bag, her coat, buying things, delivering messages whenever she argued with Lian Sheng, and helping her home when she was drunk. Maybe I treated her so well that she could no longer ignore it. So after one of her fights with Lian Sheng, on a drunken night, she snuggled into my arms and asked, "Do you like me?" I looked at that slender face and nodded. From that day on, I became Shen Lin's secret boyfriend. If a backup could be called a boyfriend, this role persisted for years. Shen Lin and Lian Sheng never ended up together, but she and I started living together. Sometimes Shen Lin would hold me and say with emotion, "Luo, you are the best man I've ever had. You don't even care about my money." I would joke, "If you wanted to give it to me, I wouldn't refuse. But you never do." Shen Lin's bright, piercing eyes stared at me. "You don't spend my money, nor do you pressure me to make our relationship public. You're different from the men who tried to cling to me before." She would say, "Sometimes I even feel like you're treating me like a backup too." I'd brush her nose, smile, and bury myself in her embrace. "It doesn't matter whether we're backups or not," I'd say. "We're not unfeeling." We had shared 6 years together. Those 6 years meant a lot to me. But Shen Lin didn't see it that way. Shen Lin still loved Lian Sheng deeply. If he called her in the middle of the night, drunk, she would get dressed right away and go pick him up. In the past, Shen Lin would leave without a word, never explaining anything to me. But later, she began to explain, her face showing a hint of guilt. I thought that meant I was starting to matter to her. But I was mistaken. She still chased after Lian Sheng, leaving the country for him, not giving me a single chance to make her stay. And she was gone for a whole year. In between, Shen Lin actually returned once. She was drunk and asked me to pick her up. When I arrived, she was sitting in a private room at a nightclub, video chatting with Lian Sheng. Seeing me, she waved, "Luo, come here." She showed me to Lian Sheng. "Let me introduce you," she said. "This is my boyfriend of 6 years, Luo." Lian Sheng's face remained indifferent, but his eyes flickered over me, lingering on my face for a few seconds. Then he smirked. "So, Shen Lin, you've changed your heart?" Shen Lin smiled too. "Yes," she said. "I have a gentle and considerate husband. Why should I keep throwing myself at your coldness?" Lian Sheng watched as Shen Lin held on to me and asked how long we'd been together. I answered honestly, 6 years. Lian Sheng ended the video call. The usually proud Lian Sheng lost his composure and didn't even say goodbye. Shen Lin's hand, wrapped around mine, momentarily paused. That night, Shen Lin originally lay beside me to sleep, but took a call midway. When she returned, she clung to me, kissing me over and over. She stayed awake all night, watching me intently. By morning, her voice had turned hoarse. "Luo, we've reached the end." I too hadn't slept a wink that night, for I had guessed it. I had heard Shen Lin's conversation over the phone. Lian Sheng had casually told her to break up, saying that as soon as she did, he would be with her. I knew I was never as important as Lian Sheng. I nodded, not wanting the scene to turn ugly, and turned my back on her, letting out a sigh. Behind me, Shen Lin held me close. She held me so tightly I could barely breathe. In my ear, she whispered, "Your aunt's daughter has been found. She's not dead, just lost her memory. She's abroad." My entire body went rigid. I turned to face her. "Can you help bring her back?" Shen Lin kissed me one last time. "I can. This is what I owe you." And just like that, on the same day, she flew out to be with Lian Sheng. As for me, I met Chezu a few days later. in the best hospital in the country, where top specialists helped her recover. Soon her memory returned, and she remembered me. Chezu had been injured and lost her memory while rescuing a child in a war zone. When she woke up, she hugged me immediately, her gentle voice echoing in my ear. I won't let you suffer in my absence anymore. My tears flowed freely. The emptiness inside me was suddenly silently filled. We had missed 10 years together and didn't want to lose another decade. We got engaged quickly. Chezu asked me once if over those 10 years I had fallen in love with someone else. Don't rush, she said. Don't make a decision you'll regret. Shenlin's face flashed faintly in my mind, but vanished just as quickly. I shook my head, smiling no. I touched the scars Chezu bore from saving that child in the war zone, and repeated, no, before Chezu had asked me. I had dreamt a few times, and Shenlin appeared in those dreams. In the dreams, Shenlin looked at me with a cold smile, telling me not to overthink things. There was still a slight pang in my heart, but as time slowly passed, I stopped dreaming about Shenlin altogether. Those 6 years seemed to have drifted away with the wind. Sometimes my childhood friend Jiaoning would ask, do you ever think of Shenlin? I would pause for a few seconds, then shake my head. I hope she and Lian Sheng are happy together. I'd say, forgetting each other is best. At least I had earnestly left her behind in my mind. But a few days later, while having dinner with Chezu, we ran into one of Shenlin's classmates. From afar, she greeted us. You're back in the country and didn't call? She took a few steps, then stopped, looking shocked. Chezu and Shenlin looked very similar, but Chezu had a scar on her forehead from her time in the war zone, and her aura was completely different. She lacked the delicate, spoiled air of a wealthy heiress like Shenlin. Instead, she was calm and composed. The classmate looked at Chezu, then back at me, puzzled and astonished. Luo Ning! This! After a moment of thought, she said, Did you cheat on Shenlin? I shook my head. We broke up. The classmate looked even more shocked. Shenlin said you were still waiting for her. I interrupted her. This is my fiancé. We're getting married soon. She was stunned, staring at the way Chezu and I held each other's hands tightly, then turned and quickly walked away, making a call as she went. I looked up, about to explain to Chezu, but just as I started, Chezu smiled. It's all in the past. Why bring it up? She gently fixed my hair. It's not like I disappeared for 10 years and expected you to wait for me, she said softly. My eyes grew warm, suddenly feeling a deep pang of sadness. In those first 3 years of searching for Chezu, I held onto my phone day and night, waiting for a call. I kept it on 24/7. Every unknown number would make my heart skip. In the first year, I wished to receive a call, telling me Chezu was just injured and would be back soon. In the second year, I hoped someone would say, Chezu is alive. By the third year, I dreaded the sound of my phone ringing, yet couldn't stop myself from answering. When Shenlin appeared, I was officially diagnosed with severe anxiety, panic disorder. Her face was the last straw I clung to. Being Shenlin's backup, it wasn't without bitterness, but I simply couldn't let go of that face. Only by looking at her could I find the strength to keep going. So, do I love Shenlin? I don't know, but I am grateful to her. Grateful enough to endure being everyone's joke as her backup, and still take it willingly. Those 6 years to me, Shenlin was a good person. Someone who saved me in my darkest time. I thought that maybe I left a good impression on her as well. At the very least, as someone thoughtful. But I never expected that she would call me seething, calling me a liar. Shenlin called me late at night. I rose quietly, not wanting to wake Chezu. I thought she just wanted to retrieve the things she'd left behind at my place. But as soon as I picked up, she spat out furious, as if she wanted to tear me apart, grinding her teeth and forcing out to words. Liar. Her voice was hoarse. Luo Ning, you're a liar. You said she was your aunt's daughter. You lied to me. Gone was her usual arrogant demeanor. She held back her anger, her voice even carrying a hint of grievance, a childlike disappointment. I lowered my head, sighing, I'm sorry. I was used to apologizing. I'd been doing it for the past 6 years, always apologizing to her. There were countless reasons, like not staring at her too much in front of Lian Sheng, since it might upset him, or not trying to hold her hand in front of Lian Sheng's friends, or not calling her when she was having a meal with Lian Sheng. Each time I'd apologize, staring at her face, obediently saying I'm sorry. At first, Shen Lin would hesitate and pat my head, like petting a child, just don't do it next time. Later, she'd prop her chin up, smiling. You're so sweet when you apologize. Eventually, she stopped setting so many rules for me. But the habit of apologizing never left me. I apologized instantly. Asked sorry. Shen Lin paused, still gritting her teeth. This time, an apology won't work. Luo Ning, I'm truly angry this time. I should have left your lover in the war zone for life. Why bring her back just to make myself look like a fool? I went cold. But she seemed completely oblivious. She kept pressing me. Did you touch her or not? Luo Ning, answer me. Did you or didn't you? I cut off her impatient voice. Shen Lin, please don't talk about her like that. She means a lot to me. Suddenly, there was silence on the other end. After a moment, I heard something shatter. Shen Lin, gritting her teeth, spoke, laughing bitterly word by word. Luo Ning, you never once told me I was important to you. She continued, remember this, until I say you can leave. You're still mine. I'm not yours. I corrected her, frowning. From the moment you went to America to find Lian Sheng, we were done. Shen Lin was silent for a while, then softly asked, so this is revenge, isn't it? She sounded more resolute. You're with her, just to spite me, right? If I gave you a chance to regret this. I frowned deeper. Shen Lin, stop it. You and Lian Sheng finally got together. Focus on that. Shen Lin said nothing more. Her breathing was heavy, rushed. After a while, she didn't say anything and hung up. Listening to the dial tone, I let out a sigh. Shen Lin still hadn't changed. As soon as Lian Sheng was mentioned, her sense of reason returned. In the past, when she got drunk, she would call me in the middle of the night to pick her up. I'd rush out, still in my pajamas, throwing on a coat, and find her intoxicated at the bar entrance. In the cold night air, my hands would be numb from the chill, but she would insist on not going back. Her friend, helpless, said sorry to me, then started a video call with Lian Sheng. I'll let him see what a mess you are right now, she said. Suddenly, Shen Lin straightened up, as sober as if she hadn't touched a drop, and opened the car door, getting in on her own. Her friend and I stood outside the car, staring at each other. Her friend's eyes were filled with awkwardness and sympathy. Sorry, she said. I really had no choice. Only Lian Sheng can make her listen. I shook my head. It's all right. I don't mind. That night, I stayed up making soup for Shen Lin to sober her up, taking care of her all night without rest. But she clung to me, calling out Lian Sheng's name. All night long, a voice in my head kept asking, Luo Ning, do you really not mind? If so, why are your hands and feet so cold? I sighed, forcing myself to pull away from these memories, not to dwell on them any longer. I glanced toward the bedroom, where the woman I loved most was. What happened in the past didn't matter. What mattered was now. I didn't care anymore. Chezu and I began planning our wedding. We went to try on wedding attire, ignoring several calls from Shen Lin. Yet my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. All were messages from Shen Lin on WeChat. She hadn't sent this many messages in a month before. Luoning, I haven't given you permission to leave yet. Luoning, you'll regret this. What are you doing? Answer me. You never used to take this long to reply. Annoyed by the constant pings, I grabbed my phone in the changing room and hastily replied to her. I'm with Chezu trying on wedding dresses. Please stop messaging me. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then, my phone started vibrating nonstop, as if it wouldn't stop for even a second, as if the person on the other end had gone mad. I had no choice. I picked up. Shen Lin, if you keep acting this way, we can't even be friends anymore. But she ignored me and started asking me one question after another. What's so good about her? Luo Ning, marriage and dating are two different things. She took a deep breath. Luo Ning, listen to me. Did your parents even agree to this marriage? Why don't you wait for me to come back and talk to them? I calmly interrupted her. Shen Lin, stop this. There was silence on her end. Quietly, I said, Shen Lin, I really am getting married. She and I grew up together. We know each other well, and we're perfectly compatible. Shen Lin tried to say something, but I cut her off again. If you keep acting this way, Lian Sheng won't be happy. She didn't respond, but her breathing was no longer steady. I sighed. I've told you before. I grew up in an orphanage. I have no parents. Why do you always forget that? And with that, I hung up. Shen Lin didn't call back again. Meanwhile, Chezu patiently waited outside the dressing room, without asking why I had taken so long. When I finally came out, she embraced me, holding me for a long time, unwilling to let go. Ningzhe, she whispered, thank you for loving me. I hugged her back. And thank you. We both grew up in the orphanage. Having grown up with so little kindness, I remember every bit deeply, grateful beyond measure. Unlike Shen Lin, the pampered heiress who always got what she wanted. For her, a once obedient ex-boyfriend suddenly getting married seamlessly would naturally drive her to the edge. But I believed time would heal everything. Eventually, she would let go of her resentment and look forward. However, I overestimated Shen Lin's ability to accept it. A few days before my wedding, Shen Lin called me late at night again. She seemed to have been drinking. Luo Ning, well done. I was growing increasingly impatient, considering blocking her altogether. Her words came slowly, her voice hoarse and despondent. Back then, why didn't I think to take a look at the photo? Just one look, and I would have known something was off. She sounded both hurt and angry, but I didn't look, not even once. I even brought her back from the war zone, healed her, and handed her to you. Why did I only now think to look at the photo? I gave myself a rival. Shen Lin's voice shook with fury. She lowered her voice. I could tell. She was struggling to contain her emotions, yet she couldn't stop her voice from trembling. Luo Ning, did you see me as a substitute? I was silent. She, too, fell into silence. After a while, she gritted her teeth and murmured, say something. Why won't you answer? But I suddenly remembered back then, when Lian Sheng had other admirers. Shen Lin posted a picture of my silhouette in her social media feed. She was wearing the latest trendy brand that Lian Sheng liked that season. It was the only time I ever wore something Shen Lin bought for me. Usually, I wouldn't even remove the tags, just kept them in my wardrobe. But that day, Shen Lin persuaded me to put on that outfit and took a picture of me. It was the first time she ever posted me on her social media. A lot of people liked the post. Many commented asking who I was. Shenlin, hugging me, showed me the screen, and with a playful tone, called me hubby. "They're all asking about you," she said. When Shenlin was in a good mood, she would call me hubby. She'd twist her hair around her finger, saying, "You're my hubby." All my friends are so jealous. I gave a small smile, but my eyes drifted to a new comment. From Lian Sheng. "I want to go to the music festival. Are you coming?" After a moment, Shenlin glanced at her phone. Her hand hesitated. Then she turned her phone face down, casually pulling out her credit card, and headed to buy sneakers. Then she stood up, put on her coat, and prepared to leave. I watched her as she headed for the door, and almost without thinking, I stopped her. "Shenlin, don't go, okay?" Shenlin held onto the doorknob, hesitated for a moment, then turned back to smile at me. "Feeling lonely, huh? Well, I'll just take a little stroll and buy a few more outfits, maybe a new watch." She turned back and closed the door. As it was about to shut, she suddenly added, "I'll be back soon, hubby." I watched as the door slowly closed, lowering my head, not sure what I was feeling. By then, we had moved from college to working life. Shenlin had shifted from calling me baby to calling me hubby. In one way or another, she had started to mean something different to me. I stared at the credit card on the coffee table, looked at it for a long time, then put it in a drawer, never to touch it again, or to let my feelings be stirred again. A few days later, Shenlin returned. The post of me on her social media had disappeared at some point. A friend called her asking why she deleted the photo of her boyfriend. With a casual tone, she replied, "Oh, just a boy I saw on the street. Thought he looked good, so I took a picture. Didn't want you all to misunderstand." At that moment, I was holding her in my arms. She nuzzled closer to me, playfully affectionate. She hung up the call, kissed my ear. "My hubby's so good." After a moment's thought, she posted my photo again, but made it visible only to herself, resting her face on my chest. She murmured, "My hubby's so handsome. No need to show others." I looked at her face, smiled silently, feeling nothing at all inside. Much like that credit card gathering dust in the drawer. Back then, I never once complained. It's like drinking water. Only you know if it's warm or cold. But now, Shenlin was filled with bitterness. "Luo Ning, say something. Am I truly just a stand-in?" I sighed, deciding it was time to lay things bare. "And what about me, Shenlin? These 6 years, what did they mean for me?" Shenlin fell silent. I continued, "For 6 years, I never once complained to you. Shenlin, it's only been a few days, and you can't handle it?" Her breathing sounded uneven. I sighed again, and hung up the call. Then I blocked Shenlin on WeChat and my phone, completely severing ties. With those 6 years, Chezu and I got our marriage license and held the wedding. Everything flowed seamlessly. I planned meticulously, giving Chezu a fairy tale wedding. From now on, I wasn't alone. I had my own family. But during the wedding, my childhood friend Jiaoning told me Shenlin booked a flight overnight, rushing back as if she'd gone mad. I didn't really believe it. After all, she'd finally gotten together with Lian Sheng. She wouldn't be so reckless as to leave him and come back. But to my utter shock, she actually showed up. The Shenlin I remembered was alluring, charming, radiating elegance. But now Shenlin looked pale as a ghost, exhausted and worn out. She held a jewelry box in her hand and quietly watched Chezu and me. Rather than looking at me, she seemed to be staring at Chezu. I was startled by her presence. Shenlin looked at Chezu, then back at me, and beckoned to me with a finger. Chezu had just gone to greet some colleagues, and worried that Shenlin might cause a scene. I quickly went over to her, speaking to her gently. Please don't make a scene. This wedding means everything to me. I don't want anything to go wrong. Shenlin's face darkened, though I was pleading with her. It seemed to enrage her even more. She glanced at Chezu in the distance. Luo-ning, which one of us looks more like the other? I froze in place. I didn't quite understand what she meant. Shenlin repeated the question. Hubby, between me and her, which one of us is more like a stand-in? She called me hubby, so naturally as if we were still together. But in the past, she'd only call me that when she was in a good mood. And her good moods were always related to Yan Sheng. I would have preferred her to call me by my full name, Luo-ning. I put on a cold expression. Shenlin, I'm not your hubby. I pointed toward Chezu. I'm her husband, the legally married kind. Shenlin stared at me, speechless, her face turning ashen, making me slightly regret speaking so bluntly. She was raised as a pampered heiress, and being spoken to like this might push her to act out in some way. I stood there, frozen, wondering how to politely get her to leave. Then I heard Chezu calling me. Filled with anxiety, I tried not to let it show, but Shenlin's cold expression and the fate of my wedding loomed over me. Chezu, as if sensing nothing, leaned into my embrace, gently soothing my worries. Don't wander off, she said. I might lose you in the crowd. Then, patting my shoulder, she added, don't be afraid. I'm not going anywhere. Chezu and I held each other tightly, listening to the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, and all my anxiety vanished. I smiled, nodding. Yes. Chezu stood on her toes to kiss my lips softly, and I held her close, returning the kiss. As long as Chezu was with me, whether the wedding went smoothly didn't matter. With Chezu by my side, I feared nothing. I kissed her with deep emotion and passion. When the kiss ended, I realized Shenlin was gone. There was no scene. She had quietly left. Downing mentioned, Shenlin walked away hurriedly, as if she were running from some fierce beast. Then a message from an unknown number buzzed on my phone. You never smiled at me like that. Zhao Ning, still beside me, gestured with his hands. Looks like Shenlin was really shaken up. I've never seen her look so defeated. She even stumbled. What's with Miss Shen? He asked. I shook my head, saying nothing, holding onto Chezu's hand, not wanting to let go for a long time. We had depended on each other since we were young, fallen in love in our youth. And now, finally, we were together as a couple. What happened to others didn't matter. What mattered was, I was with the person I loved. When Shenlin left, she entrusted Zhao Ning to give me a ring. Zhao Ning scoffed. Now she thinks of a ring? Where was she back then? Zhao Ning had never really liked Shenlin, and when I was with her, he was always disappointed in me. But there was nothing he could do. Shenlin was always generous with me, constantly giving gifts, but never a ring. Once, during a meal together, Zhao Ning joked and asked Shenlin, when are you buying him a ring? I'd even pay for it. Shenlin made a quick phone call, and not long after, someone arrived with an expensive bracelet for me. Zhao Ning was so irritated his hands shook. I said a ring. Doesn't Luo-ning deserve a ring for all these years with you? Shenlin placed her hand on the back of my chair, smiling slyly. He'll have it eventually. What's the rush? She hooked her finger under my chin, smiling as she promised me, within 10 years, I'll put a ring on your finger. I looked down, smiling faintly, saying nothing. I suddenly missed Chezu deeply. Chezu would never make casual promises with a smirk. Though their faces looked alike, they were not the same person, and would never be. After that meal, I intended to distance myself from Shenlin. I ignored her calls, didn't reply to her messages, changed the lock code on my door, and stopped visiting her place. But within a few days, Shenlin's stomach ailment flared up. She sent me a video, her face pale and haggard. I suddenly wondered if Chezu, before she disappeared in the war zone, looked just as worn out, unable to control myself. Despite Zhao Ning's disapproving look, I went to see Shen Lin. Her place was littered with empty bottles. In the week I'd avoided her, she had drowned herself in alcohol. Sighing, I cleaned her place, made porridge, washed clothes, sliced apples, and took care of her until she felt better. Shen Lin held my hand. "Don't avoid me," she said. "Luo Ning, I wasn't lying to you. Within 10 years, I'll really buy you that ring." She gestured, saying she designed it herself for me. I chuckled. "Then why not now?" Shen Lin went silent. After a while, she murmured, "I have something to resolve first." She pulled me onto the bed, lying down beside me. Her heart beat quick and close. "Luo Ning, I'm not lying to you," she said. "Wait for me 10 years. I looked at her face, but said nothing. Shen Lin held me even tighter, as if afraid I'd slip away. "So it's agreed 10 years. I rested my face against her chest, listening to her heartbeat. A heartbeat doesn't lie. 10 years later, on my wedding night, Chezu and I hardly slept at all. Early the next morning, while Chezu was still asleep, I went downstairs to throw away the used small umbrellas. As soon as I reached the bottom, I saw Shen Lin. She was standing next to a Ferrari. Her eyes bloodshot, cigarette butt scattered around her high heels. I had no idea how many she had smoked. She glanced at the transparent trash bag in my hand, turning her face away to avoid looking at it. Her voice was trembling terribly. "Luo Ning, I waited all night, watching until you turned off the lights." All her usual pride had vanished. She avoided looking at the trash bag, but couldn't avoid seeing the red marks on my neck. The once proud eldest daughter of the Shen family now looked as though she had lost her most precious treasure, staring at my neck, her eyes turning red. In a hoarse, desperate voice, she said, "Luo Ning, I'm not feeling well." In the past, whenever she said this, I dropped everything to care for her. Cooking meals, slicing apples, feeding her medicine, taking her temperature. But now, all I could say was, "Take some medicine." Shen Lin's body wavered, her eyes reddening even more. A single tear fell, but she didn't wipe it away, just kept looking at me. "Luo Ning, when I saw you smiling at Chezu, I thought a lot. I can love you like she does." She closed her eyes, clenching her teeth, as if she were about to say something hard to admit. "Even if I'm just a stand-in, can his stand-in eventually become the real thing?" "Luo Ning, I can't accept you being with someone else." I was speechless, raising my right hand slightly, a wedding ring on my finger. Not expensive, but something I had carefully designed and custom-made. Shen Lin's face grew even paler. "Luo Ning, take it off." "Will you take it off yourself, or should I do it for you?" she rasped, pleading. "If you want a ring, I'll buy you one. As expensive as you like. Throw that one away, please." I shook my head. "I can't, Shen Lin. This is my wedding ring." I looked down at the ring, the one Chezu had chosen for me, and I loved it deeply. Shen Lin choked up. "Don't say that. Luo Ning, I feel terrible, really terrible." I sighed. I held no resentment toward Shen Lin. After all, that face had helped me through the toughest times. I only wished for Shen Lin to move on, to look forward. Choosing my words carefully, I was about to console her when, looking up, I saw a figure that stunned me. Lian Sheng had arrived. His usual cool, handsome face looked strangely ashen. He looked at me in disbelief, then at Shen Lin. "Shen Lin!" When others told me, I didn't believe it. "In the middle of the night, you broke up with me, booked a ticket back to the country. Was it really for him?" He looked at the wedding ring on my hand, as if insulted. "He's so unremarkable, yet he's married. You left me for him?" Lian Sheng looked furious. In the past, a single angry word from him would have Shen Lin chasing him halfway across the world. But now, she didn't even turn her head, acting as if he didn't exist, and spoke directly to me. Luo Ning, I really can't live without you. Truly, I can't sleep at night. I haven't slept properly for days. She looked utterly exhausted. Please come back. Luo Ning, I'll change everything. I won't even look at another man again. Her voice was hoarse beyond recognition. A stand-in can become the real thing. A marriage can end in divorce. I'll really change. I'm begging you. I opened my mouth, but was too shocked to say anything. I had never seen Shen Lin like this. Never before. The proud heiress of the Shen family, even after years of awkward back and forth with Lian Sheng, had never begged him like this. Lian Sheng was stunned as well, his face alternating between red and pale, finally muttering, "Don't regret this. I won't give you a second chance." Then he turned and left. Shen Lin didn't even glance back. I reminded her, Lian Sheng's really gone. But Shen Lin reached out to pull me closer. I never intended to be with him long term. He was just something I couldn't let go of. When I think of marriage, the only person who comes to mind is you, Shen Lin. I rubbed my temples, cutting her off. I'm worried Chezu will wake up and wonder where I am. I decided to lay it all out for her. To be honest, I didn't always see you as a stand-in. I did have feelings for you. How could I not? 6 years of being close, skin to skin. How could I not feel anything? Shen Lin's eyes brightened. I sighed, but you were the one who pushed me away. Shen Lin, don't you remember? Every time I was about to feel something, you chose Lian Sheng. I chuckled bitterly. It was you who kept pushing me away. You kept reminding me that Chezu would never treat me this way. You could never replace Chezu. The light in Shen Lin's eyes faded, but she still struggled, saying, I can change, Luo Ning. I'll change. I shook my head, cutting her off. Shen Lin, you don't love me. You just can't accept that someone doesn't love you. It was Lian Sheng before, and now it's me. I pointed to my heart, but I can't be entangled with you anymore. This place, I said, touching my chest, is now filled with my wife. There's no space for you anymore. The last glimmer in Shen Lin's eyes vanished completely. I didn't say anything more, just walked past her and headed home. When I reached the entrance, I suddenly noticed Chezu standing there, silently, as if she had been there for a while. Panic filled me instantly. You heard everything? Chezu leaned into my embrace. Don't worry. She hugged me tightly. Shen Lin called me, told me about everything between you two, and asked me to let you go. And what did you say? I asked, surprised, looking up at her. I doubled the money she spent to bring me back, paid her back in full, and sent her a wedding invitation as well. Oh, what? I was at a loss for words. I muttered to myself, wondering how Shen Lin found our wedding venue. Chezu really knew how to strike at the heart. I didn't know when Shen Lin left, and I had no time to care, busy preparing for my honeymoon with Chezu. On a sunny afternoon, Chezu and I arrived on an island for our honeymoon. Blue skies, white clouds, crystal clear sea, and golden sand. A gentle breeze blowing by. Chezu and I closed our eyes contentedly, basking in the sun by the sea. When evening came, we returned to our beachside cabin. Years ago, I had mentioned to Shen Lin that I wanted to stay here, but there was never time. Later, when Chezu heard, she immediately decided this would be our honeymoon spot. I stood at the window of the cabin, hoping to glimpse the nighttime sea, and noticed a familiar figure outside the cabin next door, sitting on the sand drinking beer, alone, surrounded by empty bottles. I pressed my lips together, closed the window, but hadn't drawn the curtains yet when Chezu came over, holding me, pulling me into a kiss. From the corner of my eye, I saw Shenlin's lonely figure on the beach, drinking continuously. But then Chezu pulled me to the bedroom. In the early morning, I got up to drink water and glanced outside, surprised to see Shenlin still on the beach, motionless. Startled, I rushed out, kneeling down to check her breathing. Thankfully, she was still breathing. I patted my chest in relief and was about to leave when Shenlin suddenly grabbed my hand, opening her eyes. Those once beautiful eyes. Now I'm in a hazy daze, sad and helpless. In the early morning light, she silently watches me. She softly pleads with me. Luo Ning Tsai, can I hold you one last time? Just once, just for a moment. I shook my head. I withdrew my hand and stood up. I'm married. Shenlin. Shenlin was terribly drunk, almost laughing, almost crying, her voice mingling with the sound of the rising waves. But damn it, I can't let you go. Luo Ning. It's not about what we cannot have. It's about love we didn't realize. Luo Ning, please give me one more chance. Can you? This time, I swear I won't take you for granted. I halted my steps and then turned back. This endless entanglement, it's not a solution. Might as well make her give up completely. As I walked back, Shenlin seemed to find hope. She looked at me with hopeful eyes, but I looked down, took out my phone, and brought up a picture, silently placing it in front of her. It was a photo of a pregnancy test. 2 lines. Chezu is pregnant. Shenlin was stunned. After a few seconds, she forcefully pushed the phone away, as if it were a venomous snake. She couldn't even bear to look. She couldn't say a single word. I stood up, looking down at her, and repeated her own parting words to me, exactly as she had said them. We've reached the end. After that, I walked back to the cabin. Behind me, everything was deathly silent. Eventually, I completely forgot Shenlin. Chezu and I enjoyed a lively life together, and nearly forgot everything from before. 10 months later, Chezu gave birth to a daughter. At our child's 100-day celebration, Chezu proudly showed off our daughter to everyone, smiling so wide she could barely contain it. I sat to the side, watching Chezu and our daughter, feeling warmth fill my heart. A server from the banquet hall came over, handing me a beautifully wrapped gift box. Hello! A lady just asked me to deliver this to you. I thought it might be a friend of Chezu's, sending a gift for our child's celebration. So I thanked him and accepted it. I opened it, finding 2 items inside. One was a bright gold necklace, and the other, a valuable men's ring. That ring looked familiar. Jiaoning leaned over to take a look, exclaiming in surprise, "Isn't this the ring Shenlin gave you when you got married?" She asked me to pass it along after you'd refused to take it, and I returned it to her. I froze, unsure of what to say. After a moment, I collected myself, picked up the gift box, and hurried out. But I was a step too late. I saw Shenlin's slender figure getting into her familiar sports car. The engine roared as she drove away. Zhao Ning followed me outside, sighing deeply. If only she'd been like this sooner, the 2 of you wouldn't have. I shook my head, smiling. What are you thinking? There are no ifs in life. What's missed is missed. There's no if, and no remedy for regret. I returned to the banquet hall, gazing at my wife and daughter, feeling even more grateful. Chezu came over and held me, asking, "Is there something on my face? Why do you keep looking at me?" I shook my head, leaning into her embrace. "I'm just grateful I didn't miss out on you. Didn't miss my true happiness."